How is everybody doing tonight? Welcome to another edition of Boys in the Zone. We got a great guest here, David from Cowboys Storyliners, FTW. What's the FTW stand for, brother?
It's just Fort Worth, Texas, man. That's where I'm from. So
Fort Worth. There we go.
yeah, yeah,
Man, we're just talking Cowboys preseason, what we're looking at with the young guys battling out. Maybe we're going to see some of Booth, which we recently traded for as well. And the changes overall in the defense is going to be a massive thing to look for. What is your most important position to watch for tonight? Of course, Trey Lance is probably most people's, but excluding Trey Lance, we'll start off with that.
yeah, man. I mean, I think that obviously Trey Lance is something that I'm interested in watching, but outside of him, I would say even above Trey Lance, I want to see how the defensive tackles work, man. Because
Mm,
I mean, nothing has scarred me more than watching our run defense in every playoff loss that we've had, and just in all the brutal games last season. It was just run defense, pin and pull. They couldn't fit in, and I think that it kind of their bad play kind of started to rub off on the linebackers, and you start thinking that the linebackers are underperforming, when really it's just they don't have lanes to run through. So yeah, I think the
yeah.
defensive tackles. I want to see what Mozzie can bring. So
Yeah, and talking about those nose tackles, especially Mozzie Smith, Carl Davis, Justin Rogers, all of those guys need to prove that they can actually consistently get push at that spot and knock their quarterback off of their spots and disallowing them to step up in the pocket and just rip some throws. If we see that on a consistent basis from all three of those guys, I feel a lot better about how the linebackers at the second level are going to be able to diagnose what's happening in front. That's really one of the biggest questions for me. So that's a good call for that. For me, I'm really looking at this wide receiver four spot: Flournoy, Brooks, Cropper, throwing Durden. Who knows? That's going to be a big tell for tonight. And then, of course, we're going to see how this kind of high flying offense looks, because last year we were really pass heavy, just because of the run blocking woes throughout the season. But man, these guys have an opportunity to really put their stamp on that wide receiver four spot and kind of separate those, that kind of cluster between those guys. Another position I'm really looking forward to is Kalen Carson. You got rid of Nashawn Wright, and he's your presumable cornerback four. Can he possibly push to get in there on some more plays? If you roll with the dime package, is he going to be on that field as one of your 11? That's going to be something that's going to be interesting to see. And then how does he work inside out? Can he play that slot and then still be a boundary corner on the outside? What do you think about that?
yeah, that's one thing that I mean. I think that Carson played so well that it pushed right out. I mean, I think they had given Wright an opportunity. I mean, I think that everybody kind of knew that when they drafted him, it was a bit of a reach, but it was a Dan Quinn type of cornerback. It was a tall, lengthy guy. That's who he wanted. And now that he's gone, I think they were kind of like, hey, we got this Carson guy, not as big, not as lengthy, but definitely a baller. And I think that he kind of played so well that he pushed right out. And then one thing that I do feel bad for Carson about a bit, which I shouldn't feel bad about anything because he's balling out, he's doing great with this
Hmm.
opportunity. But Jordan Lewis is also just a baller, dude. He's also
Yes.
just playing so well all the time. So as well as he plays, I mean, he's chasing some really, really top dogs up there. So I mean, but as we've seen, I mean, we've had injuries at the cornerback position for several years. I mean, it happens often. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how he performs when the lights are on, because everybody can be a camp star, but when the lights turn on and national television, people are watching, you know what can you do? So I'm excited about that
Yeah.
for sure.
To that same sentiment about like Jordan Lewis, though, I mean, if I had to name any camp MVP, it would probably be him thus far. He's just been all over the field, getting interceptions, pass breakups, just his understanding of how to click and close in that zone coverages that Mike Zimmer rolls out. He's been phenomenal, man, and he also, I think, really understands what Mike is trying to do in the disguised packages as well. You saw it on one of the clips in training camp thus far, where he looked like he was going to come off the corner blitz, and then instead they send Micah around. He was at that middle linebacker spot. They send him around. He gets to the quarterback, and Lewis drops back in coverage and just plays that zone perfectly. I think that that's the biggest shift versus the Quinn defense then and the Mike Zimmer defense is just this disguising and whatnot. And I think that Jalen Brooks it was that alluded to that in one of the pressers and just understanding like this defense is completely different from just how it lines up to after the snap goes off, how it shifts, and you have to be aware of that and cognizant of what to do in certain areas. So that's
And
going to
if
be.
I
Go ahead.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. If I may piggyback on that, I mean, I think that's extremely important because I think was it Sam Darnold at one point where he was basically saying like, "Oh, I know what the Cowboys are going to be in," and he was dotting us up, and then like the next game or the next, I can't remember if it was the next game or the game after that, where he was basically saying, "I'm seeing ghosts" against whoever he was playing at that point. I can't really remember who exactly it was, but he mentioned that he could diagnose what the Cowboys were going to be in at any point. And he was doing really well against us at that point. So to be able to disguise your blitzes, disguise your coverages, show four, play two, show one, play, zero, whatever the case may be,
Hmm.
it's going to be, pivotal to how great this Mike Zimmer defense is going to be. So yeah, I'm super excited to see how they run. I'm glad to see we have, in my opinion, real, true, traditional linebackers now. Some guys that are going to run downhill, fill gaps in. Some bigger frame guys. I think Bell did a really good job coming down from a safety position to play linebacker last year, but I think
Hmm.
it eventually started to wear on his body, and I think teams started to run right at him. Smaller guy. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm excited to see what Zimmer's going to bring.
Absolutely. Got to shout out my guy Jeff for popping in the chat. Says, "What's up, guys?" Another thing to look at as far as this shift and whatnot is the understanding of who is in your division. I mentioned this on the Twitter space last night, but you've got Jaden Daniels, a young rookie quarterback. You've got Daniel Jones, who probably is going to lose a little bit of his athleticism after the ACL tear. He's going to probably be more of a stationary quarterback now. And then you've got Jalen Hurts, which obviously he wants to get outside and kind of do some things outside of the pocket, but he struggles against the blitz. This is going to be really advantageous against your own division, disguising these packages, sending the blitz, walking up linebackers into that A gap, and then dropping them into coverage after the snap goes off. So, man, it's got me excited for this defense again. I think that this defense has kind of been lost in the sauce a little bit to what some people want to say, because the offense was so good last year. But I still think that this defense has a lot to prove, and especially with the additions of Diggs coming back and Overshown, which might I add, Overshown is supposed to play tonight. He's on a little bit of a pitch count. What are you looking from Overshown coming in here as well tonight?
Okay, knock on wood. Health. I'm looking for him
Yeah,
to stay healthy, but I'm definitely excited to see him. I mean, one thing that flashed about Overshown last preseason was his ability to run sideline to sideline, his ability to plug in the gaps, and when he hit people, he didn't just bring them down; he hit people, and that's
yeah.
something that I feel like. I mean, for a very long time, I feel like that's something that this defense really needs. A guy that's going to like really set the tone. I mean, Donovan Wilson comes to mind whenever you think about guys who hit, they bring the wood and they bring some attitude. I want
Hmm.
him to be that. And I think he can be. I mean, I think that one thing I was listening to an interview that he did after one of the practices, and he was talking about rehabbing the ACL and all the guys that were rehabbing ACLs along with him. And he basically
Sean
said that he would.
Stevens, Diggs. Yep.
Mhm, exactly. He said that he would message them in the mornings and basically just be like, "Hey, this isn't over for us. This isn't the end of our story. We still have a lot to prove." And I think that right there is just already showing that he wasn't even part of the team at that point, but he still made sure to maintain that leadership position. He knew, like, hey, I know I'm a natural born leader. I know that I'm for this. I don't care that I'm not on the field. I'm going to lead in the rehab room. I'm going to lead in the playbook. I'm going to lead however I can. So I'm excited
Hmm.
to see what he develops to be because, I mean, so far, from what I've seen in practice and from the little bit that we saw last year, I mean, he seems like a dog. He seems like a baller, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, he's another guy that I feel like is kind of cut from that same cloth as like a Jake Ferguson, but for the defensive side, and I think you need that. One of the things that I've been most impressed by him with is just kind of what you said earlier, just still being vocal and trying to be a leader despite not being able to be on the field. And you saw that extremely evident on the field whenever he was in that. I think it was the Seahawks game where he tore his ACL in the
Yeah.
preseason game. he was vocal, and throughout training camp, he's been vocal as well. So it's a good change from the atmosphere that we had last year, where it was Marquise Bell and a little bit of Wanye Thomas down there playing linebacker, and Jaron Curse, traditional safety guys coming down there to play linebacker. Maybe they weren't as always keyed in on what's happening in front of them just because they don't have that familiarity with the position. So I'm really excited to see this young group, Maurice Luafau, Demo, and then Damone Clark. All of those guys are young. All of those guys are going to be up and coming linebackers for the future of this team. And it starts with learning and soaking all the information you can from why is my name his name Kendricks, um,
Mhm.
and understanding how he plays linebacker in the Zimmer defense and his understanding of coverage, and then how quickly he can diagnose, because that's been on full display throughout training camp. And I think that that's one of the things that really helped CD Lamb last year, and he had a little bit of it with Amari Cooper, but especially with Cooks, he every single time he came with the media was talking about how much of a difference Cooks has made on his routes and how he runs stuff and how he gets off of releases, and at the top of the route, how there's different wiggles and different shoulder shrugs that he can make, or that he can pull to free himself out. So it's one of those things, man. You got to soak up those veterans' knowledge because they've been in the league for so long, and it's important. But you also have to take the onus of being willing to humble yourself and understand that you don't know everything about the game. And I'm excited to see these young linebackers tonight, man.
For sure. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, the better that the DTs play, the more that the linebackers are going to be able to flash. So, I mean, it goes hand in
Hmm.
hand. Like, I'm excited to see what these DTs can bring if they can clog up some holes and let the linebackers, flow the way that they should. One thing that, if I may, one thing that I was interested in seeing, I know you touched on that a little bit, with that wide receiver 4 spot. A lot of times we see, like I said earlier, camp guys that shine in camp. I mean, I think, I can't remember his first name, but I know we had the wide receiver Houston, I think it was last season, that he was
Dennis
like,
Houston. Yep.
yeah, Dennis Houston. It was just like flashing and stuff like that, and did decent in the preseason. But I'm excited to see one of them actually take all the information and all the reps and practice that they do in training camp and translate it over to the field and see them actually like ball out against some other guys. And then obviously, you know, the Trey Lance thing, we need them to do well because we need to see what Trey Lance can do, and we need Trey Lance to do well because we need to see what these wide receivers can do as well. So yeah, man. I mean,
100%.
I'm
And
just
and
super
with
super excited.
that, I just got a notification that Trey Lance is due to start tonight. So he's going to be rolling with the ones. It's not going to be Cooper Rush at the start of the game. And it looks like Guyton is going to go as well. And so those are two extremely important positions for how the offense is going to flow, is that blindside left tackle spot and your quarterback. So you got to get out there. You got to be prepared to play some good defenders on that side, because they are going to be their starters, and this is going to be the dress rehearsal based on what the Cowboys want to see from Trey Lance. It's going to happen tonight, whether or not they can release Cooper Rush and maybe roll him out as the QB2 throughout the season.
Yeah,
Because I personally think that they're going to want to keep one of these extra wide receivers or running backs or tight ends, and you can't do that if you're holding three quarterbacks on your roster, in my opinion.
for sure. And I think that's the right thing to let Trey Lance, just take the reins in the preseason. I mean, without sounding too content or not content, I guess complacent.
Cliche.
I
Okay.
Yeah, or yeah, complacent. I think that Cooper Rush, we know what you get with Cooper Rush, man. He's consistently
Hmm.
there. He knows, he wins games. He can win games. He may not be able to carry a team, but he's consistent. He's good on the rollouts. He's good on the crossing routes and stuff like that. You know what you got with him. So to me, I feel like you'd be wasting an opportunity to see what Trey Lance can do by rolling Cooper Rush out there. Like, you already know what he can do. Let him sit. You know what I mean? Which I don't know. I mean, thinking from Cooper Rush's perspective, he may be like, I don't want to just sit here and let some guy take my spot either. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm curious, but I am glad that they're deciding to let Trey Lance start. I think that's the right decision. You invested a fourth round pick on this guy, and you got to give him an opportunity to prove you right. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I think that the for a lot of fans, Trey Lance and Maurice Luafau have to have good games to justify them not taking a running back in the draft, because
For
those
sure.
two picks are the exact reason why you don't have a Jalen Wright, a Braylon Allen, one of those guys that you felt good about during the draft process that fell all the way to the fourth round. So, um, Marshawn Lloyd is another one that I was really interested that went into the Packers. So, those two guys you got to hone in on, and it's kind of the same understanding of with last year is you got to watch Mozzie Smith and see how he played versus Matthew Bergeron or one of these other guys that we could have got to help the offensive line. And so it's going to be interesting to see those two guys. And I personally think Leo Fowl is going to look very impressive. He's actually touted as a starter right now on the depth chart, which is very interesting. It seems like Mike Zimmer is fallen in love with him and Lewis a lot, and Damone Clark as well. So I'm just excited for this linebacker group, for the secondary in general. But also another guy to keep an eye on is the young rookie Marshawn Nealand, who has been compared to D Law a lot in the past as kind of more of their run defender. But he's shown some flashes in our training camp that he can rush the passer and get there and cause some pressure. So it's going to be interesting to see what he has tonight as well. What's your expectations for him?
Well, one thing that I would like to point out is, man, that's the NFL, right? I mean, you come in here, you're drafted, you're like, okay, I'm behind this guy, Sam Williams, and I'm, obviously Demarcus Lawrence and
Mm,
stuff. And then just like that, boom, you're the guy, dude. You know what I mean? You kind of cut, you got, I mean, or you're next man up sort of mentality. I mean, like you got to
yep.
come in, you got to perform. So, yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, I do feel like he's going to, he may have the first time, rookie kind of deer in the headlights initially, you know what I mean? But as soon as he settles in, like I have full faith in him being able to play well against the run, you know what I mean? And I think that him being in the same room as Demarcus Lawrence and can help him out, like as far as, understanding how to, position his body and everything like that for sealing off the edge or whatever he needs to do. That's one thing that I feel like, I mean, I've said it 1,000 times that Dallas needs to do better at is stopping the run. And it's not just up the middle, that's on the sides as well. So I'm really excited to see what he can bring. And we'll definitely be watching him close tonight.
For sure. I want to pull up this, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get our cameras on the side for us to really be in the shot. Not that it matters that much, but
It's all good. I'll just scoot over.
anyways,
Boom.
um, just going and looking at this depth chart, they do have Peyton Hendershot above John Stevens. I personally think Peyton Hendershot is on the outs right now. What's your idea with Peyton Hendershot, John Stevens, and who's the other guy? Hold on, let me pull that back up.
Schoonmaker, you're
Brevin
talking about?
Spanjord.
Oh, okay.
Brevin Spanford. I feel like Schoonmaker's pretty much locked up.
Yeah, oh, man, I'll tell you what, I really didn't like the Schoonmaker pick. I don't know. It's just me. I'm just tired of bringing tight ends in here. I really do like Ferguson. Hendershot, I do like Hendershot as well. I mean, of the guys that you mentioned, I'd probably say Hendershot, and then below him would be Stevens. I do like Hendershot. I think that he's done well in the past when he had opportunities. I think Jake Ferguson just shined a little brighter, obviously. And then John
Hmm.
Stevens with his injury, we're not really sure how he's going to come back from it, but I do think that he could build off of some of the production that he was having last season. So that would be my order, I think. Yeah,
So you would
that
have
would be my
Hendershot
order.
above Stevens and Brevin Span Ford, I think his name is.
Currently, right now, I've seen Hendershot make plays in regular season games. I've seen him play in regular season games. You know what I mean? So that's just honestly the biggest indication for me that he's more ready, I guess. But at the
Okay.
same time, like I don't know. I mean, you gotta see these guys play. You know what I mean? You gotta see what they could do. And like I said, I do like John Stevens. I mean, coming off the injury, we want to see what he could do. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of like let him build off of what he was doing, and then we can see where we go from there.
Absolutely. Got to shout out my guys from Cowboys Can Fan, always showing support. Also, another fellow grid member, my guy AJ, who's also a part of Cowboys fan, Can Fan. What's up, guys?
What's up, fellas?
Yeah, yeah, man. I'm interested to see because I'm kind of over with the experiment of Hendershot. I kind of feel like your three tight ends are Schoonmaker, Ferguson, obviously, and John Stevens. And I think John Stevens is going to have a really good preseason game tonight. I think he's going to get a touchdown and probably 60 yards or so. I just feel like he's a mismatch as far as receiving goes. Now, my main question would be uh, do you have enough blocking at that tight end position? And do you feel like Hunter Lipke kind of fills into the tight end room a little bit for blocking. Like, how does that kind of mesh with the fullback tight end slash group? Because I do think that Lipke is going to make this team.
Yeah, and I thought that Schoonmaker was going to be more of a blocking tight end. Um, so far, I mean, like I said, I could just be a hater. Alexander, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. But I may just be a hater, but I just didn't like the Schoonmaker pick at all, man. So
Yeah, I didn't either, but
part of me kind of still has a little bit of a little resentment, I guess, for that. But if he can come in and he could block really well, I mean, and then whenever you put it that way as well, I mean, I do think that John Stevens would be pretty good. I believe he was a decent blocker. Um, so I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe Hendershot is out. Maybe you're convincing me that Hendershot should be
well, here's
out.
my thing with Hendershot is those seam balls. He has trouble catching those, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the Cowboys' offense, the tight end is running on that seam route, and
Mm-hmm.
Ferguson had made some spectacular catches last year with the seam route. Schoonmaker even had one against Washington, I believe that it was a beautiful pitch and catch from Dak to him. Hendershot though, he had the one, I think it was against the Colts. Dak threw straight, hit him in the numbers. He juggles it, intercepted. Training camp, there's a clip surfacing around him doing the exact same thing. He's had some drop problems, and I don't think that you can stick around on this team having those drop problems when we know that that's probably Dak's best throw that he throws. And it's such a pivotal part of the offense because it keeps those safeties in the middle on those that Vic Fangio shell high, two shell high defense honest, and where they can't cheat outside. And so, and if you know anything about the Eagles acquisitions, they actually have Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator now. So that's a super important throw to have in your arsenal. And if you have Hendershot out there, does Dak want to really just drop back, 3-step drop, and rip that ball in there, knowing that he has struggles catching that ball? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point because, like you mentioned, I do think that that might be Dak's best ball. That seam route, right down the middle is. I mean, he throws it beautifully, and sometimes it's a little bit. Being a tight end, being a big guy, you got to be willing to take that hit. And I don't know,
Yeah.
you're right. Now that I think back, I do feel like Hendershot kind of gets what we used to call alligator arms. He doesn't really want to reach that far out for the
Mm.
ball because he doesn't want to take this shot. So yeah, I mean, I do think that. And on top of that, I do, Dak's worst season of his career when he had all those interceptions. A lot of those came off of tip balls, and we can't afford that. We can't afford Dak
Yep.
to. I'm not saying that he would. He's a savvy vet now. He's not ninth year, but we can't afford for him to take unnecessary or throw unnecessary interceptions because they're bouncing off of other people and that take any sort of toll on his confidence. You know what I mean? Because we want to
Yep.
continue to ride Dak's confidence right now because it's
And
at an all-time high, seemingly.
another thing is like Dak, his primary attacking spot or zone is towards the middle of the field, where
Mm-hmm.
it's bad if you have dropsies or juggling problems because that allows the safety to come up and make a play on the ball. Versus other quarterbacks, when you see them rip those long balls, they're towards the sideline, so it kind of um, isolates the corner and the wide receiver on that side. So if it's nobody's ball, then it's nobody's ball. They don't have the potential of the safety coming up and getting an interception. So for
Exactly.
this offense, you see Cooks, he works as a demon in the middle of the field. CeeDee Lamb, same thing. He's working out of the slot a lot, and that's more advantageous to work in the middle of the field as well for the slot wide receiver. So when it comes to those balls, it's very important to just catch them, stick in the gloves, and go. And if you do have the good pitch and catches for those balls, you have the potential for yards after the catch. And
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that I don't believe Hendershot is great after the catch as well. So versus like a
Mm-hmm.
John Stevens that has that potential to really um, get an extra 4, 5, 6 yards after the catch on each play, just because
Yeah.
he is such a physical specimen. So got 6 minutes till countdown here. Michael Parsons is suited up. I seriously doubt that he's going to play. It looks like Trey Lance is going to get the start for the Cowboys. Some players to watch for the Rams, however, is going to be those two FSU kids from Florida State. I was a big fan of Braden Fisk, which was their second round pick. They also have Jared Verse, the edge there, who had kind of a down year compared to his year prior for Florida State, but a really good specimen and a good test for Tyler Guyton as well this first game. anybody on the Rams side of things that you're going to be looking for battling against our players?
I mean, I think it's going to be for sure. I mean, I I want to see how Guyton plays. You know what I mean? So whoever they line up there, if I'm 100% honest, I can't um, necessarily pinpoint certain players from the Rams that I'm really focusing on, but I'm focusing on how our players perform against them. So for sure, Tyler Guyton, whoever lines up against him, I want to see how he does. I mean, again, he's coming off of that chest cold or whatever it was. You know what I mean? I want to see how his endurance, his stamina is during this
Yep.
time. So, and then whoever's lined up across from Mozzie, I want to see if Mozzie is just getting cooked. I mean, that's not going to be a good look, obviously. And then, like we've mentioned, it's going to create a ripple effect, and then our linebackers not going to look as good as well. So,
I
yeah, man,
want to
I'm
say that
excited.
the Rams drafted that kid out of TCU, the center, that the Cowboys were interested in a lot. Yeah, Steve Avila out of TCU. So that's going to be
Okay.
an interesting matchup as well for him because he's a little bit undersized as a center, as far as my knowledge goes and my memory serves me. That's going to be an interesting matchup if he goes and starts. Um, Bringing up
I
Falcon
think
right here, he says, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to read that. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Falcon says, who's all ready to hear the overhype of Lance after this game, after he plays against the second and third string guys? I don't know that the Rams are starting their actual starters, but there's going to be some starters on the field for the Rams defense, and it looks like Trey Lance is going to make the start for the Cowboys. So, man, hey, I'm looking at a 180-yard game from Trey Lance and 2 touchdowns, probably one on the ground and one through the air. What is your expectations or predictions for Trey Lance?
My biggest thing with Trey Lance is just minimize the dumb decisions. You know what I mean? Like if you don't go out there and throw 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, if you're not getting 60 yards rushing or whatever, which would be a phenomenal game, obviously. If you're not doing that, that's fine. I don't care. I just don't want you going out there looking like deer in the headlights and throwing into zone coverages or just misreading the defense and just throwing interceptions. If you get sacked, which he might get sacked, I mean, there's so many sacks in the preseason. Offensive lines are just doing their best to put together what they can. There's so many sacks in the preseason. He's going to get sacked. Hold on to the ball. Don't let him strip sack you. You know what I mean? Like just the small things like that. Because if you think about it, like I said, Cooper Rush wasn't like a flash in the pan type of guy. He wasn't like just lighting up the scoreboard, but he just did the right things and he minimized doing the wrong things. And if you can get that out of Trey Lance, I think that's something that the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Cowboys fans should be excited about. And again, I'm not trying to start this like, oh, release Dak, let Trey Lance start. That's absolutely not what I want at all. But I also don't want our organization to have given up a fourth round pick for absolutely garbage. So I'm hoping that we get something out of this trade,
Absolutely.
whether it
Falcon
be
says
a good
over
backup,
or
you know what I mean? Whether it be somebody who is going to be a backup and that can
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry, you glitched in it and it completely stopped your audio. So I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Oh, that's no, that's my bad. That's my bad. No, like I said, it's just we're hoping to get something out of him, whether it be a backup right now, whether it be a backup who's going to be a starter in the future, or whether it be trade value, and we can get rid of him to a team that needs him, and then you can get something for it. I want him to play well because if he plays well, that does nothing but good for your franchise.
Yeah. Falcon says over or under on Lance throwing 1.5 picks. I'm going to go the under on that. I don't feel like
Same.
he's going to. I feel like Lance's biggest strength as a quarterback right now is understanding that he has legs and that freedom to get outside of the pocket. So I'm not sure that he's going to trust trying to throw, balls in there because the biggest way that he can lose the quarterback two spot is throwing interceptions against guys that are not going to be starters. So if it's I can possibly fit this ball in and get an 11-yard gain, or I can just run it and get 6 yards. I think he's going to opt for the 6 yard run personally. Um,
Yeah,
Falcon
and I
also
hope he
brings up
does.
yeah, I hope so as well. 100% Cooper played smart enough knowing that he just had to not lose the game for them versus be the reason why they won the game, if that makes sense. Absolutely makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Rush was a game manager those, 5, 6 games that he played, minus the Eagles game whenever they got down and he had to kind of throw it in there and get some interceptions. Got to shout out my guys from the Star We Are, also Sam. Sweet having them pop in here. BB going ham today. We out. Yeah, man, I'm very interested to see BB and his snap problems. That's kind of been the Achilles heel of him trying to win that center spot right now away from Brock Hoffman. So very interested to see what BB does tonight. I think that his pass pro, his run pro has been very good in training camp thus far, but it comes down to the snaps. If you can't get it to the quarterback, that throws off all of your timing. And we know how important timing was with the drops that Dak was mentioning all throughout last training camp, and understanding why have I never played the game like this before. Mike McCarthy has shown me so much about rhythm and these drops and finally getting to your hitch and just ripping the ball in there. So very interesting to watch BB tonight.
And if I'm not mistaken, at least in the 101s, I'm pretty sure that BB was playing center, and then he was also taking some snaps at left guard, which I thought he did really, really well. I mean, he was setting his feet right. He was really an anchor. So I'm not saying that I want him to start at left guard, but I think it's really good that they get him reps there too, because I mean I think he's going to be a very pivotal part, and he could possibly fill in in case there are any injuries. Of course, not going to wood again, but hopefully they're not. But if there are, I mean, he could be a very vital part of this team to be able to fill in one of those gaps.
Yeah. My guy Dylan says, loving the fam in the background. EJ repping the boys all around. Yep, man. Hey, I got all of my two daughters. The other one's asleep right now. In I think she's wearing like a Staubach jersey, a little Staubach jersey, and my wife got the DAC on. My other daughter's got the DAC on, which we also bought 3 years ago at a Cowboys game. So fun to see her get to wear that now. And I'm repping the Parsons. So the whole fam around here are also part of the team today. Weedin Boys from Jacob Garcia. Glad to see you in here, man. I don't know if I've seen you on my chat, but if it's your first time, please do hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. I try to do a show every single Tuesday night, and it's all Cowboys content. So if you're a fan of the boys, man, you got to subscribe. I appreciate you
That's
being in here, though.
that's my cousin.
There you go. Hey,
Yeah, I
but
told him. I
hey,
said, get in here, man. It's good content.
we keep it on. We keep it in the family here. Yeah, man. I'm very excited to see all of these rookies. But who's a sophomore that you think has to have the best night tonight? Is it Schoonmaker, Mozzie? Is it Demarvion Overshone, Eric Scott Jr.? Who's that guy that you're really eyeing on?
Man, it's got to be Mozzie. For me, the sophomore guy, it's got to be Mozzie. To me, I mean, as much as I didn't like the Schoonmaker pick. To me, it's got to be Mozzie, man, because so many people are like Schoonmaker can kind of fly under the radar. Everybody's thinking about Mozzie. Everybody's talking about him. Everybody's talking about how slow he was off the ball. Everybody's sharing clips about him getting blown off the ball. And I want him to come through, and he's put on that weight back. Seems like he's an opportunity to kind of get his strength and stuff like that up. So I'm interested to see what he can do. I think he really, really needs to have a good game, especially with him being a starter, and he's going to be
Mm-hmm.
getting a lot of reps tonight. It's like, I don't really know because I've never been on an NFL team, but if I was a starter and I knew that I was playing a lot of reps in the preseason, I'd be a little bit worried about that. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I definitely think it's going to be Mozzie.
Yeah, he's picked up a new nickname from the D line coach, Mickey Mouse. So yeah, he's got to prove that he belongs here. My biggest player to watch the sophomore now is going to be Junior Fehoku, and I know some of his family members have been into my chat before and mentioned me in some tweets and stuff. This is not a indictment on Junior. I haven't seen him pop off during training camp. I need to see more from him, especially now that he moves more towards a three tech defensive tackle more primarily. We'll see if he transitions a little bit more to the edge as well. I know he did a little bit of both in college at San Jose State, especially with the loss of Sam Williams. But he's got to prove that he belongs on this 53-man roster, because right now he has not popped off, and he was a fourth-round pick. You expect those guys to start making their headway that second year. So Eduardo Casanata. I don't know if I said that right. Go ahead and correct me because I know I didn't.
It's Castaneda, yeah. He says Puro
Casaneda.
Cowboys Vato. Yeah, that's actually one of my best friends right there too. So I got some people
Well,
trying to come in
welcome as
here and
well,
show
man.
some
Hey,
support.
hey, everybody, you got to like the show. You got to subscribe, hit that notification bell for sure. I'm going to have David on in the future, man. He's a great guest thus far, and I love a lot of his takes.
Thank you.
Moving over
Can I?
to Falcon. Oh, go ahead, interject, go.
No, I was just gonna throw out there. I was gonna kind of change the subject. So go ahead and read Falcons because his is more on topic, I think.
Okay, for me, Mozzie is being used as a one tech. He was versus the three tech they tried to turn him into last year. That's the exciting part. Scheme for players, not force him to fit the scheme. Yeah, I think that that's going to be the biggest change from Dan Quinn to the Mike Zimmer defense, is just the understanding of specific players fit your scheme, don't scheme to fit other players. So just because you have a chess piece being the queen and Michael Parsons doesn't mean you always have to shift your entire defense around to get Micah off in a specific play. I think that the Cowboys did a little bit too much of that last year. And maybe it was, that relationship between Dan Quinn and Micah being a little bit too strong at some instances. But I think you just got to line these guys up and understand the defense as a whole is how you're going to win games, not a single player. And I'm excited to see if Mozzie can truly turn into that one tech that he was at Michigan. And I think the biggest thing to watch from Mozzie is just his snap speed, getting off the snap, because last year he was so slow, and that is extremely detrimental for your balance, for your strength, for getting under the pads of another player that you're opposite of. If you fix that, you fix a lot of the problems Mozzie Smith had last year, and then you start to clog those run lanes and really allow your linebackers to play free. Go ahead with your other point, though.
No, I was going to actually bring up something that I'm excited to see as well that we haven't talked about today. We talked about tonight, last night a little bit, but not today. I'm excited to see the kickoff, the kickoff
Yeah.
return. I mean, I watched every single highlight of all the preseason games so far. I didn't get to catch all of them live. Obviously, I got two children myself,
Hmm.
but I watched every single highlight, and there were some big returns. And you really look at it, and you have that one line of defense. You know what I mean? So if you can get past that, you have opportunity to really burn. So I'm excited to see Turpin and his little guy. His name's escaping me.
Deuce Vaughn. I don't think the
Vaughn,
Deuce
yeah.
is. I don't think the Deuce is
Oh,
playing
his
tonight.
hamstring, right? His
Hamstring
hamstring.
injury.
That's right.
Um, but yeah, man, he's another guy that's going to need to prove that he belongs on this roster. And
Mhm.
missing tonight's game, there's only 3 preseason games now, so he only has really 2 more chances to truthfully carve out a role for him on this team. Um,
Yeah.
I thought
And
that
what
was
an
just
excellent
going to be big.
story. And what an excellent story Deuce was or has been so far. You know what I mean? Obviously, with his father working for the organization, him being 5'5". Shout out to the short guy, Short Kings. Shout out to us. But yeah, I mean, he came through. He started to flash and he did really, really well. So, but I do think, as much as I don't feel like he will be on the roster when the regular season starts, I do feel like all the ball's in his court, and he has the opportunity to make it happen because I don't feel like he had a fair shot last season with the offensive line that we had and the lack of production that our run game as a whole had. I mean, you see, Tony Pollard got let go, and obviously I feel like he had more juice in the tank, but he didn't really get to show it because of our offensive line last season as well. So
Hmm. Yeah, and speaking of that new kickoff rule, I don't know if the game is on for you yet, but the Cowboys did just kick it off. It looked like it was Brandon Aubrey back there. I was interested to see if it was going to be Brandon Aubrey or Brian Anger kicking off, because if you know anything about kicking, punters are usually the guys that are going to be placing the kicks versus, especially years past with the old kickoff rule, should I say? You can just boot it out of the back of the end zone, and it's a good thing as a kicker, and that's what Brandon Aubrey did so many times last year. So it looked like it was Brandon Aubrey back there on that first one, and the Rams are starting off right here at the 30 as he kicked it out of the back of the end zone as well. So we'll see. It looks like Stinson Bennett, former Georgia quarterback, is the starter for the Rams tonight, and he's been up and down in the preseason so far, but I'm really looking at the Cowboys D line because we have so many young players there to see Mozzie Smith, Junior Fehoku, Mark or Golston. Um,
and
who's another guy?
Is Nealon going to be out
Nealand.
there? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Nealand's out there. He's got some good push on that first play. Looks like they completed it right there on Kalen Carson over the middle of the field. We don't have to do a play-by-play by any means. I was just kind of watching. Um, Anything else you want to talk about, man?
No, man. I mean, I'm really excited. Again, like I said, I'm excited to see these corners or Carson play. I mean, I know he just got completed on, but excited to see Carson play, and I'm excited to see these wide receivers see if they can shine the way that they do. And of course, they won't unless Trey does. So, and then Overshown and the linebackers, I'm excited to see what they could bring as well. So.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Overshown, as you mentioned him, makes a nice play right there. Getting to the edge, and I don't know if it was quite a tackle for loss, but at least at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, so a 2 yard gain. Yeah, Overshown, as far as my understanding of how he's looked in training camp, and I'm no specialist on linebackers, but he diagnoses very quickly and he trusts what he sees. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that Damone Clark lacked a little bit of last year is trusting what he's seen. Junior Feihoku gets some nice push right there in the inside. Um, man, it's Cowboys football back again. It's
Yes,
hard to
sir.
not get excited about this. Yeah, any crazy prediction before we get off, or do you want to? Or I mean, if you want to keep on rolling, we definitely can. Um,
Yeah. I would love to keep rolling, and this isn't just a coincidence because the game did start. But my son just woke up too. I'm watching on the monitor, so I'm gonna have to go get him in a bit. But I guess crazy prediction. I don't know if I have a crazy prediction. I have hope though. I have hope that Trey Lance is gonna play really, really well. I'm. You know what? I'll throw a crazy prediction out there. I'll say that I don't know how crazy this is though, but I'll say that Carson gets. I'll say that Carson gets an interception in this game. You know what I mean?
hmm,
Which I know doesn't sound too crazy. It's just one interception, but when you're out there, it's your first preseason game, it's your first real action. You could be a little hesitant to break on the ball. You could be a little hesitant to um, just break on the ball. Period. It's like, is it a comeback or is it a double go? Like I'm not really sure, um, but yeah, I think Carson will shine. I think he'll get a pick today.
Hey, I'm all for that. Keep on climbing that depth chart for him. Um, looks like Junior. Oh gosh, Stenson Benson picks up the fourth down. Yeah, guys. Hey, if it's your first time jumping on my show and checking out the channel, please do leave a like on the channel. Please do hit the subscribe button, set that notification bell. I go live every single Tuesday night, just talking Cowboys, bringing in other guests, knowledgeable people, and also just fans of the team. So, if any of that sounds interesting to you, please do all of those things I've previously mentioned. And I got to shout out my parent network, the Grid Network. If you have not checked them out, please do. They have a whole host of other sports. That is GRYD Network on YouTube, Twitter. Check them out. And with that being said, I don't know if Marcus is in here. Marcus, I might go live again during halftime and talk about some stuff. If you want to jump on then, since you didn't get to your destination or whatever and get to hop in, we'll try to coordinate that and get that set up as well, man. Anyways, David, any closing statements or anything you want to say real quick?
One, I just really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be on. Like I said, I mean, it's something that I just love doing, man. I love talking Dallas Cowboys football. I love listening to all the podcasts. I've listened to you. I'm a big fan of yours now. I'm not going to pretend like I've been there since day one. I am a new fan, but I do appreciate all the work that you put in and the quality of work that you put in. So, yeah, I appreciate that. Chat, I appreciate you guys being nice to me. It was my first time doing anything like this before. And, yeah, I hope to be back. So, just message me, man, if you ever want me to come back. I'd love to do it. So,
Awesome, man. Hey, we'll peace out. We'll corroborate and get you back on the show for sure. Peace.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Go.
Forget what you got, none of it matters until you don't work from the top. I'm talking non-stop squad. They've been down with me for years, and none of them asking for squad, fight. Out of the gutter, don't stutter, I'm taking my shots. Pop, block, out the noise. Some others, my brothers and me, we going off. Bippity pop, talking that ish, I'ma empty my clip, my Google go pop. There goes another, I'm jumping for cover, then I'm taking off. We're not getting caught. Tired of violence, but you pushing buttons, it's something that's ticking me off. Stop, say it again, gonna regret it. I'm talking beheaded, your body's gonna rot. If you do not know me, don't comment on my life. Don't comment on my daughter. Don't comment